Yes, so I'm Markku Alho, a postdoc at the University of Helsinki, and I have been working with Vlasiator now for 4 years soon, doing some weird electron things that I'll mention more in some time, and code development and data analysis and visualization mostly. But I also have a background from doing hybrid big simulations on Mars and Venus and the Churyumov-Gerasimenko comet for Rosetta mission. So I kind of have a good background for discussing other planets than Earth as well, which is the main focus of the Vlasiator code, and we'll get back to that soon. We'll have kind of a bigger lecture now to begin with to introduce ourselves and the code, and then the rest of the workshop will be kind of more relaxed and free-form, hands-on type of things. Firstly, our instructors during this week, well, me first on site, but online we can find Urs Ganse, who is the lead developer of the code. I'm not sure, does my cursor show online? Yes, it does. That is good. Then we have Markus Paterby, Jan Faukempf, and Leo Kotipala, who will be joining us on Zoom and in the afternoon breakout rooms. And Markus will at least be giving a lecture on some data analysis tools that we use called Analysator. But the Vlasiator team is quite a bit bigger. So our PI is Professor Minna Palmroth here, who is the big boss, and then we have a pretty large group of 10-ish plus of postdocs and university researchers and several doctoral researchers, and then assorted students then who are not listed. And this group has grown quite a lot in the last few years. So it was starting from 2008, just like 3-4 people, and now it's nearly 20. Yeah, this workshop's topic is learning how to use Vlasiator. So how to actually run simulations and how to try and save some resources, because scaling is pretty important when we go to supercomputers, and how to actually interpret or at least access the data that we output with Vlasiator. And quick note that this is indeed the first workshop that we are throwing, so bear with us, and feedback is welcomed. And today, we will have this introductory lecture, and then we'll go through building a Vlasiator, so cloning it and building the libraries and compiling the code, and then running Vlasiator with some small example cases, and we'll do a bit of a scaling study altogether. And yeah, we'll try to be hands-on, and workshopping time after lunch is on the schedule, and that's planned to be such that we can split off into Zoom breakout rooms with online people, online instructors, and myself here. And there is in the daily HackMD pages, there is this workshopping questionnaire that you can add possible topics that you would like to discuss, and then you can also like second these topics if you want to join one topic. Then we can see which are the most popular topics, questions, and then we can kind of adjust based on that. And we'll let you know what is going to be going on and where, probably through the HackMD page. Yes, so here's also a slide about this workshopping HackMD notes. But then let's get into the actual business. So how Vlasiator does what it does and what it is. Now, a quick question. There was we shared these introductory lectures on Vlasiator. How many did watch these? Few. Okay, good. I did not do the introductory slides then in vain. But there's going to be this lecture is going to be pretty top level, so there's more details in the shared lectures. So please refer to those. But what is Vlasiator? So it's a ion kinetic hybrid plasma model. So it describes the distribution functions of plasma ions in detail using the laws of formalism. So distribution functions are being propagated in time. Electrons are a massless charge neutralizing fluid, so it's a hybrid plasma model. And we are indeed aiming for global magnetospheric simulations. So simulations that include the whole of the Earth's magnetosphere and how it interacts with the solar wind. And yes, we have been very focused on the Earth in developing Vlasiator. That is the primary science topic. Yes. Sure.
No, sorry, I just wanted, because you're saying for the Earth, but I was wondering if it has been used on other planets.
There has been ongoing pilot study in the US by Hadi Madanian, who is trying to use it for Mars.
Okay.
So yes.
Has anything been published on it, or?
No,
okay.
I don't believe so.
Work in progress. All
Work
right,
in progress,
thank you.
definitely. Yeah, and there is nothing that actually prevents you from at least trying to use it for different planets. So the physics are pretty much the same. The inner boundary might be a bit of an issue. How to adjust that if you don't have a dipole, a global dipole magnetic field, and so on. But yeah, I mean, my background is in cometary modeling, so that does not have an inner boundary. So that would be possibly an easier target to maybe simulate with this, except for the distribution functions of pickup ions, which are pretty interesting and might not be very well suited for the velocity grid that we have. But we can discuss this in more detail, definitely. But let's go forward. So what does it mean that we have this velocity distribution function? Well, it means that we have a 6-dimensional partial differential equation. So it is rather heavy to compute. And that's why we have to use the largest supercomputers in the world to get these global runs at sufficient resolution. And yeah, these may change in the future. So we can, at least through collaborations, we could have a Vlasiator going on different planets. And we are continuously improving the model, so its performance should be increasing. So this is a very old graphic of going only up to 2020. We have somewhere an updated version of this. But this is here, the black line is the performance development of supercomputers. And here is the Vlasiator performance from code optimizations and algorithmical improvements. So we have been gaining orders of magnitude performance. And we have gone a bit beyond this, what is here. So we have a ordinary space AMR that enabled 3D runs that we have included, but for example, velocity space adaptive mesh refinement that we have not yet managed to do. That gets pretty tricky. And temporal subcycling, or rather time classes, that's another big thing that would help performance. So we have definitely potential still for improvement, like in some orders of magnitude, hopefully at least. And yeah, in development since 2008, and the idea back then by Minna was that let's develop a code for modern supercomputers, modern as in this year, 2020 supercomputers. And then the projection is that then we can have a code that is good enough and computers that are large enough that we can actually run global magnetospheric hybrid Vlasov simulations. So that pretty much turned out exactly as planned. So 2023 is the kind of the landmark paper of the first science results from 6D global Vlasiator run, which already was pretty good. We managed to explain, at least potentially explain, why the tail reconnection substorm initialization processes can be viewed from two different paradigms, so to say, like near Earth neutral line and current disruption models, and why you can have one satellite observing one, and then maybe on the second pass you can observe something that is related to the other paradigm, and we can just show that yes, these are similar things that are happening at the same time in the magnetotail, but just at different magnetic local times. So that's pretty cool. But yes, this has been a long time in development, going from 2D runs or 5D. So we can be a bit inconsistent in this dimensionality here. So 6D or 5D or 2D and 3D. So if we say 2D, we are referring to two spatial dimensions, and if we say 3D, then we are talking about three spatial dimensions. We always use a three-dimensional velocity space though. So when we have two spatial dimensions and three velocity dimensions, then we have a 5D simulation. So 2D is about the same as 5D in this nomenclature. So what does it look like? 2018, well, this is already a review paper, but this is now one of these 2D runs or 5D runs. So this is a very well, high resolution 300-kilometer simulation. So this resolves ion kinetic scales, and then you can get this beautiful instabilities at the bow shock and the foreshock from the ion beaming populations, and all sorts of wave activity in the sheath, and also reconnection in the tail that is quite dynamic. But that is already 5 years ago. And nowadays, let's see if the videos work. Yes, maybe. Somewhat. And we have more resolution. Yes. And now this is a 6D run. This is the first production 6D run with from which the Polmuth et al. Paper was done. And this is not showing that up greatly on the projector. It's a bit dark. But here we again have the bow shock, have some wave activity in the sheath visible there. And we see some rippling on the magnetopause here, and then a very dynamic tail current sheet there. There we can actually see some eruption there, getting a plasmoid ejected, and you can see this yellow, reddish, orange plot is current density. So you can see these stripes of higher current, and those correspond to plasmoids getting pushed away down the tail. Can I get out of this video? Yes. So how do we get from here to this to start with? So this is yeah. Even these 2D runs required some algorithmic improvements. So if we have a velocity space for each grid cell here, the memory consumption is going to be pretty huge. There's going to be some numbers later, but one big thing here is that we use a sparse velocity space. So for each spatial cell, we have a velocity distribution function to begin with, and then where this distribution function is has a low enough density, we just discard it. this saves something like 98% of the memory footprint and makes it actually so that we can fit these simulations into supercomputers. And the velocity space here works so that each cell here in this 3D cube has a location with velocity going to x direction, y direction, and z direction. So giving the mass that is going with this velocity. And that is indeed the kind of one of the elementary things that we propagate in this model. And this is propagated with a Vlasov equation. So the f is the distribution function. It's time derivative there, first term. Then we have a spatial translation, and let's use this. So this is the spatial translation term, and then here is the acceleration term. So here is the Lorentz force doing the acceleration. How do we solve this? Well, we can notice that these we can actually split into two operators, so we can leapfrog this spatial translation and the velocity space operation, so the acceleration operation, into two different operators that alternate and give us a solution for this equation, given that we have some way of getting the fields. And algorithmically, what does this spatial translation look like? Well, when we have this Vlasov grid in, let's say, the velocity coordinate here, and then a spatial coordinate here, we can actually do this dimension by dimension. And if we look at how does this transformation look like, so we have velocity cells with increasing velocity going up here. That means that they will be moving along the spatial dimension here into this direction. So this maps to a shear transformation, which can be pretty nicely solved. And yes, refer to the Urs Ganz's lectures on more details on this and how this works with the spatial AMR. Velocity translation is so acceleration, so translation in rotation in velocity space. This comes from the Lorentz force, so this is a rotation about b and a linear acceleration along b. And with some maths and image processing background, you can find out, well, from image processing studies, that you can actually decompose three-dimensional rotations into successive shears. So this acceleration step actually can use the same machinery that was developed for the spatial translation, which is very handy. So that's how the Vlasov equation is being run in the background there. But what about the EM fields? So we use the Darwin approximation and a generalized Ohm's law. So here we can get the electric field from the Ohm's law using the moments of the distribution function. So this is, well, the ideal MHD part here. Here we have the whole term, and here then the electron pressure gradient term, and these are all included here. These we can fit to the Faraday loop and calculate what is the change in magnetic field, and then we can obtain the current from the curl of the B. So that's all fine and dandy, and this is very familiar to well, MHD people and hybrid PIC people and so on. Yeah. What we use here to solve these equations is laundry line Delta, this constraint transport model, and we have this phase-centered phase averages of magnetic field that we are having as the primary value here, and then edge electric fields that are then calculated. This is nice in that once you do this Faraday loop over the edges with the electric field, then you can propagate the magnetic field in a divergence divergence-free fashion or divergence preserving and then fashion, and then you just make sure that you don't have divergence to begin with, and then it stays controlled. No need for any divergence cleaning algorithms that are pretty expensive. So that is good. What is, by the way, the time? 35, that's good. And now some numbers and how to get into the nitty-gritty of this. What are the magic things that we use? So sparsity of the velocity gate was mentioned. But this, if we look at a bit about our requirements that we would like to have. So velocity space should be something like 2000 cells squared with some few thousand kilometers per second velocity space extents. And we would like to have something on the order of tens of kilometers per second in the velocity space resolution. So a few hundred cells per dimension, 3 dimensions. So let's go with 200 cubed velocity cells. And something like, say, 60 Earth radius cubed domain. And that 200 kilometers comes from the scale that we are targeting, or at least should be targeting. We don't reach that all the time, but that's more or less fine. So this is like the ion kinetic scale. And that means that if we had a naive dense Cartesian grid, we would have quite a few sample points. So we would require some exabytes of memory to fit the grid into, or the samples to many computers, which is not going to work. So the sparsity gets rid of a lot of this, and that makes the 2D runs possible, which is here again. Now let's notice that there's like this blocky structure here. So that we'll get back to in a bit. But this sparsity, I should really use my cursor. So we set a threshold value for the distribution function, and then we discard anything that is below it. But we also do include a bit of a halo region, so the distribution function can actually flow into these empty regions. So there's a bit of a buffer here, so we don't lose this mass too much because of that. And the Vlasov solver that we have is actually conservative, so that is not going to lose any mass from the distribution functions. But of course, if we are discarding values below some threshold, then this is no longer conservative. But that is we have seen that it is fine. The losses, we can keep track of them, and they are not that large, and they don't affect really dynamics. We have the main portion of the distribution function that contributes to the moments that is well described. And then going from the 2D runs to 3D or 5D to 6D, adaptive mesh refinement is the other big thing. So most of the space around the magnetosphere is pretty uninteresting, and we don't actually want to describe that in full detail, and so we can just leave that be. So adaptive mesh refinement is the way to go. So we have a finer simulation mesh wherever there are large gradients and interesting dynamics happening. The first production runs were such that the mesh was adapted with some given parameters. So there was a box that covered at least approximately covered the tail current sheet, and some nose cone in front of the magnetopause and the bow shock with higher resolution. But now we are currently running or trying to run a production run with adaptive mesh refinement. So these higher resolution grids here, like in the dark, are getting adapted based on the physical environment. So we see that okay, there's higher gradients are coming here, so we can increase the resolution during the runtime. and let that develop by itself. And now we can capture basically the whole bow shock now with fine resolution here and the tail current sheet. And here we can see some initialization foreshock type of structures that are going to flow away as the run progresses. So let's go forward. Some more of the nitty-gritty. So once we have this spatial mesh refinement on the Vlasov grid, that is fine. That enables us to run the Vlasov grid efficiently. But as it happens, the field solver is pretty easy to parallelize on a uniform grid, and it is also it has a constant number of operations per grid cell when you propagate the fields. That is in contrast to one of these. So if we have a sparse grid, if we have a very cool population, then we have something like this. So it's a very compact one, but we can have very complex ones with multiple beams and crescents and pancake distributions and loss cones and whatever. So those will be much heavier to propagate. So that produces a bit of a challenge for load balancing, and then that's why we still run the field solver grid at a constant resolution. So that's a uniform grid over the whole domain. That's easy to load balance. But then we have to map between the moments obtained from the Vlasov grid to the uniform grid and then the fields back to the Vlasov grid. This is maybe like, I don't know if there are any other such heterologous grids in use anywhere else. But this is, for now at least, is working for us because this field solver grid, even at the highest resolution over the whole domain, is still cheaper than running the Vlasov grid at this point. So this is not the bottleneck. So we are content with using that. Of course, it needs some gluing bit of the moments, and if we have a Vlasov grid that has these sharp gradients coming from the coarse grid to the fine grids, then we kind of have to do some smoothing of the moments on the field solver grid. So this is a process that we call filtering, which is just basically some kernel that we apply on this smoothing kernel that we apply on the FS grid here, and then we get smoother moments for the field solver to use. And as an example for the load balancing, see here is the field solver grid. So this is how the domain has been decomposed to different MPI tasks. This is very clean, regular, as you would expect. That's easy to balance. But here, when we have the mesh refinement and the sparse velocity space, we have Earth somewhere in here, and then we have the bow shock somewhere, and the magnetopause somewhere in here. Well, the bow shock is probably here, and magnetopause somewhere here. We can see that, yes, this is not anymore a very trivial load balancing. So this is also a bit of an outdated algorithm here based on just the block counts of these 4x4x4 velocity space blocks. So how many velocity space cells are there in these domains, and balanced based on that. More advanced load balancing looks like this. So now this is another algorithm. So this load balancing is done, by the way, by this Zoltan library. And here we are accounting for the number of the surface, basically what is the communication surfaces and imbalances between different propagation directions. So if we are propagating more in this direction or in this direction? How much is the communication between the MPI domains? And this, yeah, can look a bit pretty funky nowadays. But this is actually the best performing load balancing that we have used this far. And then there's one small elephant in the room. If we are doing this sort of sparse grid or mesh refinement in velocity and spatial dimensions, what about then the time? So the time stepping now is dense, let's say. We have a global time step which causes some limitations. Every cell is running in sync. And yes, here we have the translation steps and then the alternating acceleration steps, which are being fed by the field solver. Hey. Well, short answer about the time is, well, we are working on it, trying to implement time classes. But once you start to use this heterologous grid and different time classes, so non-synced cells, then this starts to get pretty messy, and we are working on it, and hopefully this will progress soon. Would give some nice gains. But that's like the top level introduction on what Vlasiator is and what it does and how it does. And let's have a bit of a review of what is our state of the art, what we have been doing with this. So firstly, the high performance part is that we are parallelized at about all possible scales. So MPI task scales, distributed memory, and then in shared memory with OpenMP threads. And then we have vectorization working as well. So we are indeed using all the tools that we can get our hands on. What is missing here is GPUs. By the way, here indeed is why we have this memory structure of storing the velocity space in these block structures that are 4x4x4 cells. And that is, we'll keep hearing about these blocks instead of velocity space cells quite a bit. But yeah, GPUs are missing, and the porting is in progress. And this is led by Markus Butterby. And the solvers, I believe, have now all been ported, but the performance is still not up to production levels at least. But that is being optimized, and there's like lately been like big gains just via some memory pool things which Markus can definitely tell you more about. And if we have take the landmark paper from 23, what is the next big physics development is that we have had the ionosphere included. So we are now no longer using just a very simple inner boundary condition kind of a imperfect conductor that we had, which was used to be called a perfect conductor, but then we noticed a bit of a bug in there. So this is anyway now developed as an ionosphere boundary condition, which is anyway different. So we are moving forwards. And how we do the ionosphere is that we map. This is the basic algorithm is lifted from the old MHD code CUMIX from FMI. There's a bit of a shared legacy there anyway. We are using a similar method then that we map from the simulation domain through this. Well, this is like the not computed inner magnetosphere. We map along the magnetic field lines from the simulation domain to an ionosphere grid. obtain what is the precipitation of particles, to obtain conductivities and the field-aligned currents. And then we do some proper solving of the ionosphere, and then we, again, along the field lines, we map back the convective electric field from the ionosphere, and we use that to force the moments at the simulation's inner boundary. So this convection is then, the ionospheric convection is then driving here the plasma on the inner boundary. So here we have the Earth, there's the bow shock. This is like an equatorial slice. Magnetopause is here, and then we see the current sheet here. Here we can see some fingers of field-aligned currents, and here is the ionosphere grid, some form of field-aligned currents. I don't remember if this is plus or minus, and the coastlines map just stretched or mapped to the inner boundary along the field lines. And we can now observe proper convection of the magnetic field lines towards the tail current sheet, and all the dynamics of the tail current sheet here, and reconnection and related mapping of these processes to the ionosphere, and then it gets really messy. A lot of what we do and I do is about quantifying the mess that we generate, basically. So data analysis is definitely a useful topic with us. Okay, let's go a bit further if I can get this. Nope. Yep. Yep. Yes.
Thank you. So if you look at the field lines, the last one, they just shoot right up. Is that a numerical effect?
In here.
Yeah, like up to the right, yes.
Yes, so that's kind of the initialization phase, still a bit visible there. So we have the southward IMF, and that is indeed the tail still forming. The tail lobe is still forming. So these are going like this is like kind of the initial plasma boundary that we have, like turning on the solar wind at the start. So that is still flowing through the simulation.
So it's from the, I mean, because it's a simulation, it's not physical, right?
Yeah. It's related to the initialization. So
I see.
just this. Well, you will have some field lines also here, but this is mostly still the initial ones. But of course, when you have the day-side reconnection, then you will have some of these northern lobe field lines connected to the upstream. So that is also, it's, well, answer is both some initialization going on, and then actual physics as well will look like that there.
And later of the video, you see some of the field lines going up still. Is that also the numerical effect? Like if you get to the middle of the video, the video. Okay.
Yep.
Like later on, you see some of them start to fluctuate upwards. Was that also the
There.
numerical effect due to the initialization?
All right, that's a good question. That I would say would be physics already, like proper physics. Let's go back to the high resolution video. I don't like this lack of pixels there. That's the window that I have. So some of these wiggly lines here, at least, those are coming from day-side reconnection, and you can see those are being fed here. And then these wiggly guys here, you can see that, for example, this guy is connected kind of through the flank into the ionosphere. So yes, this is I would say this is already one of the kind of initialized plasma field lines. So yeah, that's good point. And this run is yet unpublished, so we'll probably see more of this later.
Is this on?
Yes,
Testing. I had another question.
sure.
And it might be naive, but you said that you were now able to simulate the ionosphere where you weren't before, or you've implemented.
It now has been implemented in production. Yeah.
Is it a surface or is it a volume that?
The solver operates on a surface. There is a conductivity profile that is getting integrated into just onto the surface of this.
Okay, so what are the biggest differences by implementing the ionosphere compared to the boundary conditions we had before?
Before we didn't have any of this this convection, let's say, of the feed lines through the. Let's grab again this animation. So this convection of the feed line, well, the seed points are now on the ionosphere and well, the inner boundary, and being driven by the velocity of the plasma passes on this surface. So this is kind of the accurate representation of the convection of the magnetic field lines of the magnetic flux in the magnetosphere. So before in these runs, this did not really happen.
So they would kind of be rooted in place, essentially.
Yeah, which I mean, it's not optimal, but we can still get like some. It feels like this picks up just sometimes, but yeah, it's definitely not optimal how it used to work. Now it's much better. It's also perhaps a bit more stable to run as well. So before we had this ionosphere, we could, as we discuss in the paper, we can basically simulate the reconnection like a substorm, not quite onset, but like the processes leading to these reconnection processes. But then after that, you would actually need to consider the convection of the magnetic flux properly. So that's kind of the limit of those previous runs. That's as far as we could go. Now we have ionosphere. Now we could, in principle, simulate the Dungy cycle, for example.
Okay, thank you.
But of course, the Dungy cycle is a bit longer takes a bit longer to simulate than we can actually afford to run at this point. On the ionosphere, oh, that's a good question. I know we set the moments of those distributions. I think that's how does it go? We can ask Urs or Jan how that is actually now done. What is the distribution function actually there? I know the moment is being set to so that it reproduces this convective electric field to drive the plasma. But yeah, I don't actually remember the specifics on what the distribution function is now at the boundary.
Yeah, because the following question will be if there is like a two-way coupling, right? If it's just like a ionosphere, boundary condition, or also the plasma condition affecting.
Yeah, you mean like ionospheric outflow?
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
how these couple?
Yeah, not in at least any detail. I mean, we did try a lot of things, including like copying the distribution functions from outer cells, but those tend to do feedback loops with each other, which is not great. But I'm not sure, but we might just have a Maxwellian there, which is set to these moments.
Well, that
now.
makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, we can check.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to ask about the adaptive grid.
Yes.
So I have two questions. The first one, when you initialize the simulation, do you start with a uniform grid, or do you already start with an adapted grid to where you expect the gradients, and then you have refinement through the code?
Yeah, there's some initial refinement to get, for example, the inner boundary, and then we do take advantage of having this mesh refinement so that we start by running with, in general, more coarse grid, and then we start to adapt it at some point once we have the initial plasma flown in a bit more.
Okay. And the second question, you said the cell size in space is around 200 kilometers. So I
Well,
think
that is the goal. Let's say. So these the 2D simulations, those are at 300 kilometers per cell. So that's the spatial resolution, which it has been enough for those runs. In 3D, the maximum grid resolution is 1,000 kilometers. So we are not quite at the ion kinetic scale.
Okay. So if you start with a global simulation capturing the whole dynamics, the day side and the night side, the bow shock and the tail. But if you're interested, let's say, only on the bow shock, can you zoom in the simulation and then have a more refined grid there, or a single run has to capture everything and then you focus your
Yeah, we have done some simulations that are more focused on the bow shock, and that is possible. Then how to get the proper bow shock, like the shape? Then yeah, I guess we could just have a very low resolution in the tail if we just want to look at the bow shock. But then going to ion inertial lengths at the bow shock would also be still kind of just out of reach at this point. There's a thing with the field solver that the required time step for the field solver actually goes down quite sharply with a higher spatial resolution. So that's kind of an issue there. But yeah, I don't think we can quite go there, at least with like an unscaled Earth's magnetosphere. Not quite yet. So yeah.
I have a question related to this one. So which numerical constraints do you have in this game? Because you talk about ion skin depth. There is any special time scale and spatial scale you need to resolve in order to retain the stability of the scheme, or you're unconditionally stable?
Oh. There's like mostly if we have instabilities, they are coming from the inner boundary. So otherwise, it's pretty stable. We have I mean, the time step is dynamically adapted to CFL, so that's very handy to run. But then one kind of a big constraint here is that we want to have sufficient velocity space resolution for the populations. So, for example, for Maxwellian populations, we would like to have at least something like 3 velocity space cells per thermal velocity. So this is kind of a strict constraint on the velocity space resolution. And
so the CFL, which velocity do you have in the CFL? Because you
CFL.
don't have light waves. Right? Because of Darwin.
Whistler waves is Whistler waves is the potentially highest fastest mode as far as I know. Usually that does not come into play, but it's yeah. The time step limit in these runs is actually coming from ion gyration. So we are propagating the velocity distribution function. The rotation is kind of limiting there. So we want to have enough of rotations that are resolved both in gyration, in acceleration and translation. So we are doing 22-degree rotations for the velocity distribution functions. So we cannot go further than that. And that 22 degrees, that's an, let's say, empirical constant. This is what we have noticed to be good. But with the dipole field, when the magnetic field goes up quite rapidly once you go closer to the inner boundary, and then of course this time step goes down very fast. So that's a limiting factor on how far in we can actually push the inner boundary at this point. Because it's a global time step, so that affects everything. And yeah, this is work in progress how we can get rid of this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the questions are on point because here's already like one point. So ion kinetic scales, we are working on having a subgrid model, so we wouldn't have to resolve it as well, at least to account for some heating that we are missing in the magnetosheet, for example. So that's work in progress. Ionosphere models are being improved, so we can have actually something more based on the physics that we have instead of MHD type solvers or inputs. Time varying solar wind input has been lately introduced, and there's studies going on with how force shock is evolving if the magnetic field flips, or the tangential component at least flips on the front wall. And lately also we did this Vlasiator module, so this is kind of a weird mishmash of things. So that's an electron, kinetic electron-ish model, where we use the Vlasiator toolset to have loss of electrons in a background generated by Vlasiator. And we can find some pretty nice results from there, but those of course have to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt, because if we are doing kinetic electrons on a grid that is 300 kilometers or 1,000 kilometers maximum, then that's not quite sufficient, but it seems to be working pretty well. Like the distributions that we obtain there are pretty realistic, which is nice. So, we initialize them as Maxwellians. Some empirical relation between the proton temperature and the electron temperature, so factor of 1/4 for converting those temperatures. Yeah, it is. It's definitely. And yeah, I mean, once we are looking at electrons at 1,000-kilometer length scales, we are in the land of big approximations anyway. Yeah, I mean, definitely we could have at least some temperature anisotropy to improve on the initialization and so on, but that's not currently a priority, at least. But that we actually have now a study coming up where we did kinetic electrons in a 3D magnetosphere. So how that works is that we take a snapshot of a Vlasiator simulation. So we have the ion kinetic fields there and moments. So that's the kind of the best global description that we have, and then we tried running these electrons there. And we have a collaboration study now with the Finnish Meteorological Institute, who are taking these electrons and calculating. We calculate the precipitation of these electrons to the ionosphere, and they feed this precipitation into global circulation models to see if that affects like neutral chemistry and so on. So that's quite interesting. Trying to get essentially a better model for auroral electrons and precipitating electrons. But what is the forcing of the upper atmosphere through the from the magnetosphere? And yeah, those results also hopefully will be published later this year, let's say. Did I have anything here? I will probably have forgotten to mention something, but at least we can add it to the materials webpage then later if we notice something missing. In terms of Plasma-PEPSC, we are definitely doing some more and better development practices nowadays. So we have now done, this is like software development and like continuous integration. We are checking automatically if we are breaking things when we introduce new commits to the tree of code that we have. And deployment of the code is now pretty easy. We'll hopefully see that in the next slot. And then, of course, like making code available to potential users, like here. So this is good and nice. But of course, there's a couple of things that need to be mentioned. So there's if you want to run Vlasiator, you do need to procure some hefty resources. So currently, we are running a production 3D magnetosphere with this adaptive mesh refinement. That's running on 500 nodes on LUMI. And the scale is several tens of millions of CPU hours. Of course, if you are in the LUMI users list, the partition policy was just rehashed, and maximum number of nodes that you can use is now something like 250. So that's not great for us. We actually have a 500 node job in the queue, but it's not going anywhere because that is not allowed at this point. Hopefully that policy will change for at least some time, because we cannot actually even load the run into memory with much less nodes than 500 nodes. So we cannot really even manage the data that we have without sufficient resources. And to note, this 500 node run, it has maximum memory consumption per node at about 200 gigabytes per node. Like those are the highest, and average is something like 160, I guess, something like that. So we are filling up these 500 nodes at a time, basically. So yes, you will need quite a bit of resources. Hopefully that will change also in the future if we can get some more algorithmic improvements in 2D magnetospheres. Those are pretty accessible in terms of resources. So depending on parameters, of course, you can get few million, then couple of 20 million CPU hours. That's still pretty accessible, at least compared to these guys. And local studies, we had one of our doctoral researchers, Maxime Dubart, running hundreds of small proton cyclotron instability runs, parameter-space studies. So that sort of things are easier to do and noteworthy, like these small global 3D test cases that we will actually be looking at a bit. That would be like on the order of 100,000 CPU hours, 200,000 CPU hours, depending on what exactly you want to do. And this is indeed what we consider these small test cases. And the physics might indeed not be great with these guys, but they are functioning prototypes at least. And yes, limitations in the model. So time step coming from ion cyclotron frequency. So this we actually discussed already. Velocity space resolution. So velocity cells per thermal velocity of Maxwellian, we want to have about 3. If we don't, we see some numerical heating in these Maxwellians. And since the solar wind plasma is basically the coolest one that we have in the box, that's kind of the limit, which is a bit annoying. We actually had a prototype case with slightly less cells than 3 per thermal velocity, and it also had a bit of a slower solar wind input. It's the time, by the way. I'm running out of time. We can have a break soon. So this run actually had the solar wind ions, because of this numerical heating, the fringes of this distribution function were getting large enough so that they were actually reaching into sunward flow position in the velocity space. So that would start to feed back into the inflow boundary, and that made for some interesting artifacts. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. We cannot go lower in velocity space resolution and not expect artifacts. Sparsity threshold is not very much of a limitation. It is if you want to look at high energy tails of distributions. That's an adjustable parameter, and if you have resources, then of course you can look at higher energy tails as well. Spatial resolution, yeah, as discussed, we are not quite at ion kinetic lengths. And spatial extents also, yeah, as said, no, we don't want to go too close to the Earth yet. And we also have kind of minimum extents for the simulation runs that we don't want to have the bow shock hitting the side walls, for example. That is a recipe for problems. So those sorts of limitations in mind when you start to design Vlasiator runs, and we'll can have a look at that later. And yeah, what can you do with Vlasiator? So it's easy to look at what we have been doing. So 2D global spatially resolved ion kinetics. So this is the older papers and still ongoing research on ULF waves and how those are transmitted, jets and slams. So foreshock phenomena and how those are affecting the sheath and hitting the magnetopause. Well, 3D global dynamics, that's doable, but that is quite expensive. You can look at precipitation of ions directly from the VDFs. Local ion kinetics, you can do local Kelvin-Helmholtz simulations. Those we have some in the works currently, and IMIC waves and so on, wave studies. And yes, as mentioned, Mars with Vlasiator is being piloted as well. But quick note, like a bit of legalese to end this session. So we do have some rules of the road on using Vlasiator, even though it is an open source code. We would really like to have a say in what is being done with Vlasiator, because it is a pretty significant investment over a decade, and with ERC funding and Academy of Finland funding, and with significant human resources poured into the project. So we kind of want to have this similar model on using Vlasiator as with spacecraft instruments. So we would like to be very much involved in all things Vlasiator, even if they are made somewhere else. So we want to have a look that these results are actually correct, that there's nothing inherently weird about them. So that kind of feeds into another topic of Vlasiator, or another point of Vlasiator, that it is quite kind of a specialist code still. So it's under constant development, and it has some idiosyncrasies. So we are pretty familiar with those, but external users might not be. And these rules of the roads are on our website and in the training materials. So you can have a look at those on your own time, but master version development and so on is of course by ourselves. And please keep us in touch. You are free to welcome to collaborate. And yeah, if you do present or publish anything, then please keep us in loop, and we will have some Vlasiator logos that we want to give you, and some introductions on Vlasiator on your presentations that we would like you to use. But that's pretty much that. Oh, and architectural papers, if you use Vlasiator, these are important to mention as well. But yeah, please find those from the interwebs. And then after the break, we can get to the fun part and start installing Vlasiator and doing things with it. So I'll note that yes, this sentence installing Vlasiator is easy and straightforward has been in the Vlasiator wiki for I don't know several years, and I mean now it might actually be true. So let's see how it goes. So you can see that I am here on LUMI in our projects, in our training projects, Apple folder. That's like the, at least used by CSC, this structure that you have this Apple and applications folder, and then the project number, and then you are collecting your binaries and source codes and so on here. So I've been placing my test codes here in the instructor codes, but I encourage you to create a new directory for yourself to play in. Few people have done that. But yes, please do make yourself comfortable in this environment. And basically, the installation procedure of Vlasiator goes such that you clone the Vlasiator repository. We have now gone to using Git submodules for some of the libraries that we have, header libraries at this moment. So those will be automatically fetched for you when you clone it, but it requires the specific Git commands to actually get these submodules, which is can sometimes cause some gray hairs, and we are pretty new at these submodules ourselves, and we might still fumble a bit, but when it works, it's really nice. When it does not work, it's a bit frustrating, but it's net positive at this point, I would say already. So let's start. So once you have or do you have your own folders? Like, can you follow if we start cloning repositories? Maybe. Yes, good. So instructor codes. So this is now, let's say, my folder. I have something that I have done done here. I'll do a demo folder here for myself, so it's clear. So let's just we can just copy paste here the commands to clone the repository, and git clone will then happily get first Vlasiator, and it should not take too long. But now it's a bit stuck. Okay, some coughing in the pipelines. Yeah, it might give some host keys there from the cloning. But, let's just keep going. And these are the submodule clones that are then done on top of this. And we have now 4 submodules here, which is actually 3 libraries. DCCRG is our grid library for. It's a very generic grid library that is basically agnostic on what you actually feed into it. So it just handles the Cartesian grid that can be refined, and then it's kind of the user's job to figure out what they want to do with the grid, and it just the load balancing with Sultan and handles quite. Yep. Yeah, sure. Let's see view. Where is it? Here. So yeah. Yeah, I'll just note that this is the Cartesian spatial grid library. Then we have the field solver grid, that is the uniform grid. And then the vector class library that is used for vectorizing operations. So the lowest or the finest level of parallelization that we use. And that includes a specific add-on for a certain type of vectors that we also include here. But those should be all now here. So there's Vlasiator. And let's see what there is. There is a bunch of files, and the cloning seems to have worked. Let's check out what branch it is. It is master. And then to make sure that we get all the submodules, we can do the checkout commands with the recurse submodules. These should be done, but these sorts of commands are very useful to do if you have some troubles with the submodules. Also, this recurse submodules goes with most of the git checkout and git pull commands, and without it, you can check out a branch of Vlasiator or commit of Vlasiator without updating the submodule content in there. So that can lead to issues, but you can also use a git config flag to automatically do this for you if you want. But that's more of a developer's view on this. Might not be relevant for you. But yeah, we'll be mostly staying on the master branch. I don't think we have any specific reason to go to other branches necessarily, but we can have a look at some point. There might be some topics if we want to go further in, then we want to have some different branches. Is there a chat question? We are back now, so this was just an announcement. But yeah, main branches that we have, the master branch, that is at least supposed to be stable, that we update quite infrequently. So the main releases of Vlasiator, when we are confident that this version is now stable and performs and is kind of a good package, then we update the master branch. Otherwise, we use this dev branch for including latest features and testing them and so on. And then we have a plethora of other topic branches for development. You can go to the Vlasiator repository on GitHub and see for yourselves. There's also now kind of a workflow thing that we have done that we also, if we have some production run, we do make a branch for it as well. So if we have to do some minor adjustments to the code or configs, then we can still include those in the repository and keep it reproducible. But this leads us now to the next, or at least we can go to the next topic, building the libraries that we need before we actually can build Vlasiator, because there are a bunch of, yeah, sure. Yes. Yeah, please follow and yes, clone the repository for yourself. This is the kind of the exercise that we want to do. Yeah. We can do it. Yeah, let's do it now, as it goes. Yes, please ask. Okay. So is it some GitHub SSH key issue? This quota. Let's see. LUMI workspaces. Have we? No, we have
You already hit
Scratch.
100,000 files, Marco.
Oh, there's lots of files. Why do we have that many files?
Well, cloning Git stuff is doing lots of small files inside too.
Oh, that's not great.
So, sorry for
Just-
chiming in. Hello from Helsinki. Jan Falkep here, another Vlasiator team member. If you hear me in the room.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
Okay,
do.
we don't hear the room online, by the way, when the room is saying something. So repeat questions if something comes in.
Right. This is interesting indeed. Yeah, but I think we could do it at users' homes. That's 100K as well. 100K files. So yes, then I guess please use your own home folder for cloning the repository.
Or Scratch.
Sorry?
It can be done on Scratch as well.
Yes,
The
that's
home
true.
might run out of memory if it's 23 gigabytes or so you had on your list. 22.
No, I mean if we just compile on
Yeah,
or
should
respective
be
homes.
enough. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. I mean not running stuff on. I mean, yeah, let's run on Scratch, but use home folders for Git things. Yeah, true. That is something unexpected. Should I actually then? How many folders do we have here? Let's maybe if it pleases you, please move your folders to under your home so we can have some space on the instructor side or the approach Apple side. I'll go to my home as well. Let's see if we get angry emails from CSC on file quota usage. I'll actually. Can I have more volume here? I don't know how to use Max. Can we increase the volume on the online side, like the output?
We will increase the volume online.
Yes, from the Zoom.
Ah, that's nice. There was a second voice now.
Yeah,
Or was
I'm
or was it
speaking
someone
down
on
to the
Zoom?
mic here now.
That works so then as well.
But Marco, there's also one comment in the chat there, in Zoom chat, about
right.
permission denied.
So yeah, the automatic getting of the submodules is using the SSH and not HTTPS. Because
Yes,
we use the SSH a lot because we are pushing stuff as well, but I'm not sure if we want to change to HTTPS in the repo, Marco.
Yeah, I mean,
Or alternatively, users
be.
you can upload your public key to GitHub if you have a GitHub account.
Yeah, that is worth checking. Is this just? Can you, Jan, check this out with Jennifer? Is there other permission denied errors, or do people have their? You have? Okay. So the thing is to go to have a public key or the SSH keys on LUMI, and then copy the public key from LUMI to your GitHub account.
So generate the SSH key on LUMI and upload it to GitHub, yeah?
Yeah. Jennifer at least received that. But maybe, well, we have 30 minutes now to lunch. So let's maybe keep on going still further. Yeah, 12:30 I think was. Oh right. My laptop is still in
Yeah.
this time.
12:30 for us in Finland, indeed. Is in half an hour, but you
Yeah.
probably have more than that.
Oh no, getting hungry already. Well, that's the first batch of demo effects, so to say. I'll actually clear my I'll okay. Well, we can keep going then. If you didn't yet manage, you can team up with someone who did, and follow along as we do this, and then we can have a look at how to fix the things during the lunch break or so, or during the workshopping. Let's keep going forward a bit. So we have do we have now how many cloned repositories? Please raise your hand. One. There was some about on that flank. Anyone there? No. Is the SSH issue or no? It's fixed. No. Okay. Okay. Well, should we go then through the SSH creation? So SSH keygen is the command. Now I don't remember myself even how this actually works.
I think you can just run it with default values and it'll do the
Yeah.
basic RSA key.
Yeah, but then I have already my own. That's why I don't want to replace.
Well, it will warn you about overwriting, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
In general, it is not a good idea to generate an RSA key anymore in 2024.
I was waiting for Urs here.
Yes.
Can you, Urs, give us the command to generate an SSH key on the chat?
Let me see if I have it in my own chat history. I haven't, but I can probably do that.
-G something.
Was it -T and then the algorithm -T
Yeah, and then-
DSA or something?
I'll send it to the chat here.
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay. So that was
that's
ED25519 is the good elliptic curve cryptography algorithm that you should probably use at the moment. You should add a -F for a file name if you already have some other SSH key there. But if you don't, this one will just generate you your default SSH key and will be all right. And if it asks you for a password, the supercomputing centers specifically ask you to please set a password to your key so nobody can grab it from your hard disk and then log in. But they won't see whether you have a password. So you might or might not do that.
enter file. Right. So you do that and then you enter a file in which to save the key. Default is fine because now it's different. And then some passphrase. No, probably not gonna. What did I write? There it is. Yeah, once you have that, you open the public key and copy paste the contents of this file into your GitHub account, which is somewhere in the visible through GitHub and settings and SSH keys here. And I don't want to show that much of those keys, but there you can see, find out how to new SSH key, and then you copy paste just the contents of this key. And that should get you forward with SSH connections. There. Yeah, there is indeed the other way of obtaining the libraries, which is indeed just downloading the zip file from the GitHub repository, plus for all the submodules, which is a bit annoying then, but it's doable. But yeah, for the time being, let's move forward and look the remaining SSH etc. issues on the break, or after like setting up this thing, or going through this thing first once. So if you go into the Vlasiator folder, you see the bunch of files here. You can go, once you have cloned and initialized everything, go to submodules and see that there is, for example, the DCCRG. Yes. Huh. Why is that? Oh, is it yeah, oh, it's the ribbon of the zoom there. Right. Let's do this then like so. Yes. Yeah, it's now it's better. Yeah, this ribbon was covering the. I think you can get rid of it somehow, but it's fine. It's fine. So you can now see that. So in the submodule folder, you can see all of these libraries that if the SSH connections work, then you have the submodules, and then you can check also what branch are you on the DCCRG. That's head, and that should be the Vlasiator version, which we have our own branch of this DCCRG library, and this is a good check that you have actually fetched all the correct submodules. So DCCRG is also in-house, or at least neighbor developed in the neighboring house at the FMI, Finnish Meteorological Institute, and we have found some things there that we want to do slightly differently. So that's why we have our own branch. The rest of the libraries that have to be built, that has lately become much easier. So you can find in the Vlasiator root folder this build libraries script. Let's copy that out of the folder of the Vlasiator repository. You could build these in place, but let's do it for practice, that we take the libraries out of here. And we want to then, before we build anything, before we compile anything, we actually want to load some tool chain. Usually, at least CSC, these are achieved by the use of modules. So given specifying the version of a compiler and then the version of the MPI libraries and so on. And we have a bunch of those, and they are actually a bit further down here. No? There. I should actually get that out of here and put it somewhere more visible. Nope. So let's do this command. This is like a single line command that can be split into different parts. But what we do here is we load first this toolchain, this LUMI specific, like the root of this toolchain, and then compilation environment, and then some other libraries that we use. So Puppy. Oh, Jan, go ahead.
Yes, exactly, Puppy. Either you load the module or you use the one you installed in the central folder. That was the reason why you weren't getting Puppy output in your tests. I found that half an hour ago.
Great, you solved it.
So I suggest we go with the module, but then just move away the one which is in the path, because there was a conflict of versions. That was essentially the issue we had.
Right. Great.
So you seem to have a stray own build of Puppy in the PEPSC folder.
Right. So that's in the build libraries then.
Possibly. That I didn't check. I sent you the path. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there it is.
Puppy. Yes, there it is. Right. We actually found some issue. Just or I encountered an issue running these test cases here. So we actually want to disable this one of these libraries, because that's available as a module here. So let's go here first. So we want to load, I mean, in general, if there is a module available, you kind of want to use a module provided by the environment, because those have been verified to work properly and compile properly by the moderators of or the admin of the supercomputing environment. So here we will be loading, besides the like the LUMI toolchain, some LUMI libraries that we could build ourselves, but we choose to use the centrally managed versions. Yep. This is what I'm showing right now. So we will take the build libraries script out of the Vlasiator folder, and that's all that we have done basically now so far. And indeed, if we go to the we should go to the build libraries on this platform and modify it just slightly. We don't want to build Poppy. So we can just comment this out here. Or we could just, of course, use the build, our own build of Poppy. But yes, please do this in the build libraries script. Otherwise, this build libraries script is pretty easy to use. It will generate, it will take in a parameter, an argument that it will be using for a platform keyword here, and then it will build the libraries into this folder that's specified by this platform. And why we are looking at this is that we kind of want to keep track on what toolchain we have been using. So we can now run the build libraries, and let's say we take LUMI as LUMI 2208 as our platform here. Let's just mark that, and then we can just press enter and let the magic happen, and we should soon have libraries that we can use. Oh, did my SSH just drop? Maybe. Well, that disconnected. So I will just do it in another session. And we want to have the libraries marked with the toolchain that I almost forgot to load. So let's copy paste that thing. And yes, you can, if you want to use a different tool chain, it is entirely possible. But we just want to keep track on what we are working with. Is it actually? One. Well, in case that's still there, I'll do just build libraries and oh wait, 2. Anyway, now this another session here is now cloning, building the libraries, and this is a nicely automated process included in the repo. But yeah, what Jan was mentioning about this puppy library was indeed that we encountered an issue. Puppy is a library that handles the memory profiling or accounting of how much memory are you using on the nodes. And yeah, I encountered that I was not getting these memory outputs on my test runs, and that was a bit of a head scratcher because I had all the flags in the make files to include these puppy outputs, but it indeed was the case that there was a slight conflict of version between the module puppy here and the one this build script, build libraries script is fetching automatically. And I was pointing to this freshly built puppy. So this is why we commented out the puppy library build from this script. So we got an extra exercise for handling these environments here, which is, I guess, nice. Yeah, Jan is indeed reminding in the chat that the project application folder quota is the file number quota is nearly done. So let's not use that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why are we installing all these libraries? Shouldn't it all use some? I don't know. This is does LUMI don't have this library installed already, and then we should install some basic.
Not all of them now.
I see. Because we are all having a huge installation with all the libraries, each one in their home folder. And it just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is it because the availability of libraries depends on your environment.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the ones that we actually need for Vlasiator to run.
Mm-hmm. And we have to have them in our home folder. I see.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a available libraries that are centrally managed, then it's of course good idea to use them.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, then you should be able to fetch all of these libraries.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, FiberOf and VLSV are homegrown libraries, so those are likely not available
Yes, so this is because I was wondering if that wouldn't cause some kind of a conflict with some library that would be installed already in the system. But I think PAPI was having this problem, right?
Yes, that indeed was the issue that we were having. So PAPI is available there, so we do want to use it instead of the build.
Okay. This is just my question. Thank you.
No problem. So we are indeed giving this sentence, installing Vlasiator is easy and straightforward, a run for its money. But while we are building these libraries, I can just yammer on about what these libraries are. So Zoltan, that is first here on this list, is indeed the load balancing library that produced us the funky plots that we saw before. It has some cool algorithms to balance the load between MPI tasks, and some of those algorithms are simple and some are more involved. And we are working on including how's it in the hypergraph? It's like the amount of communications between, like, was it like, how would Jan or Urs describe it? Like an anisotropic communication or something like this? No, node to node weights or how it is. I don't think they are following online. Anyway.
Sorry, yeah, I'm making lunch for my kid. There's a daycare strike in Finland on top of everything. What was the question?
Yeah, right. Like, what is the hypergraph this weighting like between nodes? Like how does it calculate the communication?
Well, it's the user's. The user can set edges and nodes of that graph and
Right.
try to make something clever out of it. I believe that Leo our colleague had found some bugs in the library itself when trying to set it up for Vlasiator. So that hypergraph is not yet fully operational. I'm not sure if he's online now, but I believe he has a bug filed with Zoltan, and he is working at getting a version working. Unfortunately, it's not faster than the other algorithms so far. So.
Yeah, but indeed, like promising developments there. With
the philosophical idea behind hypergraph is that you are basically specifying for every simulation cell how much would it cost to migrate this somewhere else, so that you can then optimize the migration and the running cost itself, as opposed to a load balancing scheme where you're just saying how much does it cost to simulate this. But it needs different ways of optimization. It's not like working perfectly for us.
I mean, it's an active field of study how to balance the loads. Anyway, Zoltan handles this part, and we can kind of offload thinking about these fancy load balancing algorithms to what's it, Trilinos, who is handling the Zoltan thing. Then we use Boost as well, but that's only for the configuration parser, so that's kind of might be a bit overkill, but the config files are pretty nice and look nice because of that. Eigen library for linear algebra, that's pretty standard fare. Fiprof is a lightweight profiler that Vlasiator is calling, so we can get the profiling outputs when we run, and it's included in the code level, so we can get nice traces. And VLSV is then our custom file format library, and it's definitely built to support parallel input and output with MPI, and we'll hear more about this file format a bit tomorrow. But once you start using it, it comes pretty obvious that it is indeed optimized for MPI I/O and not necessarily post-processing or user comfort when you use it. And notably, this library also contains a VLSV plugin for Visit 3D visualization software. That's also tomorrow's topic. And then the other things that we require is MPI libraries and well C++ compilers. That these are usually supported by the system. And the other libraries that I mentioned in the submodules, the header libraries, these are also the DCCRG and FSGrid are basically homegrown, and there's some prerequisites there as well. If you want to install these separately for whatever purpose, you can do it, and you can find the instructions there. But for our purposes, we are basically done with the library installation here. FSGrid is the parallel grid library for the field solver grid, so uniform. It's quite lightweight. And then the vector class for the vectorization operations.
Can I
Yes.
ask you? I have some warnings while it's executing the build module script. Is that expected? Like for as srcu2.c, then warning case, and says that the maximum value for type it's outside range, and then I had these such warnings
While building the libraries.
Yes, and also I had another warning while building Zoltan. That means it's a lot of loads.
So
okay.
did you remember to load this module environment on the screen?
CP, which module environment? I see the...
So we have this on
I think you have your...
bit hidden here.
I see.
Under make a new makefile, this module's loaded.
I loaded the LUMI 22.00.
Okay, that.
Or 08, like you put in your...
Yeah, and all of these.
And okay, I didn't load all the modules. Okay, I will.
That may affect then that.
If you don't load the CPU GNU module,
Oh,
then
I cannot
default-
hear you. Sorry, it's very
very
weird.
muddled.
Yeah. Okay, I will do it again then with the loading all the modules.
Yeah, and you can also side line on the chat with online instructors. So that's.
Sorry about that. Is my microphone better now?
Oh, that's a bit better. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't load the CPE GNU module, by default, LUMI tries to compile using a C-lang-based compiler by Cray, which should optimize more for the platform, but our experience is that it actually produces in the end a little bit slower code. So that's why we're defaulting to that. And it's also much more verbose in terms of warnings. So of course, it's nice that it gives us warnings, but most of the time we've mostly optimized for combining with GNU, so we've not seen them. And then I think it's safe to ignore them. But anyway, we suggest combining with CP GNU simply because the end result is faster.
Yeah, okay, I'll do it. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, indeed, we might get with fancier compilers, we might get some extra warnings that don't come up with GNU. That has happened before and will likely happen in the future. But now we have the libraries. Hopefully, I'll remove the old one that I had there and move this guy to be named a bit nicer.
MV, not MB, Marco.
Sorry?
You typed MB as command, like our colleague's initials.
Yeah,
it's not Marcus
I
Butterby.
did.
It's MV like move.
Marcus Butterby libraries or something. Cool. Then we are set up for looking at the actual make files for Vlasiator. We have the libraries, we have the compute environment, or compile environment. I increase that a bit. So there's a couple of levels of make files with Vlasiator. Firstly, there's the top level make file that you run when you run make in the root folder of Vlasiator, which is how you build Vlasiator. But let's see what does it say inside the make file. So we have this sort of a system for supporting different architectures through these sub make files. So we can set some compilation flags here to begin with, and then there's like the dependencies and so on are set in this top level make file, like here. But that's maybe not what we want to look at in detail now. What we want to notice here is that we include another make file from the make folder that has the name coming from this arch environment variable. So let's say that now that we have these libraries built as such, well, we can do export Vlasiator arch and like so. So now we have this stored as an environment variable, and then we can try and compile Vlasiator, and it should complain that we don't have this sort of a make file. Indeed, let's make one. So this is then what we use to adapt the the build process to different environments with given libraries and so on. So here then let's take this makefile template here in the studio materials. File not found. Oh, that's not great. Have I not pushed that? Let's. Oh, have I pushed it only to my own? Just a sec. Yeah, it should be there. Still no. Is it not then there? How does this work? Let's go to GitHub and ENCCS, the actual repository, and content, shared files, make file LUMI template. Yeah, it's been there for a while. So you can navigate here then instead. So the site is almost the same. So it's github.com and ENCCS, and then it's the rest from there. But I can stash that makefile template to some directory in our project. Makefile LUMI template, and let's put it to LUMI. And now I'm guessing we have room for one file in our project Apple. Yes.
Yes, we're at 97K, so you should be good.
Yeah. Should be room for some thousands still. Cool. So let's copy that into the Vlasiator make. So you can go now to the project push-apple project. And get the makefile LUMI template and copy it to your folder. Right. Let's rename that now to whatever we called it, LUMI 22.08. Template, rename it as such. Yeah, and you should probably have the GNU also specified there, but yeah. Oh, well, of course you do. Let's see what the group is then. Did you type the project number correctly? It is here. Oh, yeah, that's annoying. No, you should be able to read it. Yes, sorry about that. That's did not expect SCP to be so strict about that. Vlasiator, back to the make files and our template. Now let's get our reference back here. So in this template, well, we can first specify the compiler commands that those are, well, coming from upstream anyway. Here, these are just could be used this as further down the chain, but those are not used at this point. But here you can specify some more flags for compilation, like the optimization level. This you can then tune on machine by machine basis. And for test package, if you want to have some more less optimizations or some other standard and so on, then you can use test package slightly differently. Now here is one of our old acquaintances, fast math for math flags. This is probably not good to have here. It has led to some head scratching when the floating point operations did not work quite the same way as we assumed them to be working. So there's this no unsafe math optimizations that might be good there. But feel free to test those. Now here is enabling the PAPI memory diagnostics. That's good to have. YAML is also good to have. This indeed helps with memory fragmentation, but it also has, at least when you are developing it, can actually mask some MPI errors, which has been a bit annoying. But for production use, definitely good. And here, then we get to the definitions for the libraries. So this here we want to have actually then the library prefix, which is then used as just the path to the libraries that we want to have. which is well, let's fetch it from here. Well, maybe we should take a look inside what is here. Sure. So it's that one. Under your Vlasiator repo, so let's see the Vlasiator, and there is this makefile directory. This contains the machine-specific makefiles, of which we have a sizable collection here. Yes, there's having a look at the build libraries. There's the lib and include directories here. So lib has all the compiled libraries and include has their headers. So this is what we want to keep in mind. And let's copy paste the path to our libraries. You can use real path or just your home links or however you wish, as long as the compiler finds the path. Let's go back here and LUMI here. Then we fill in these blanks. We want to have the lib folder for the goes and include for the headers. And here actually we can see that these guys, boost and puppy, are included through the system, which was indeed why I got some errors back then this level last weekend while running things here. And then we are actually set to compile. Some of these libraries now in the submodules, these are now handled again here automatically, so that those are included. No problem. Or if there is a problem, we want to know about it, and then we can fix it. So what we wanted to do with the template is to put our library paths into these prefix variables that are then pointing to these specific guys. So this is indeed a way, if you want to have different versions of the libraries, then you can use the makefile here to point your compilation of Vlasiator to different libraries as you wish. And have we managed to do a makefile? Maybe. Let's try it. And let's have some more processors. I'll do it with. Let's not maybe use all of them on the front end at the same time, but I'll launch it with 32 processes. So from the main Vlasiator repo, and then you get compilation output, and some warnings are still there. Couple of unfinished documentation warnings and one actual warning there, which doesn't actually matter that much. we have a fix for that warning somewhere waiting on the wings in the pipeline. But this seems to have compiled, so no, there is something that is not then there. So libfiprof has corrupt index table. That's interesting. That is very interesting. This is a new one. This is definitely a demo effect now. Let's see. Module list. Do I have the compilation environment here? I do. Now I am a bit baffled. How about others? Did you get a successful compilation?
No.
Nope.
I got in the very beginning some fatal error because it couldn't find the jamalloc.h. I think it wasn't built. Memory allocation.h fatal error. It was right in the beginning. It started off with a G++ warning.
Right.
But I don't know. I think I missed some of the modifications you did before, and I don't know.
Let's
It was
check.
quite
So
Marco, regarding fprof, I think you should be calling the wrapper to compile fprof in build libraries. And in the version I just saw on my folder, it is using MPI C++, and I think that is not, that might explain the mistakes you were getting just a minute ago.
Yes. Jamalloc. Where's fprof there? Okay.
Yeah, so that line I believe should be capital CC on LUMI. I mean, it's going to call an MPI C++ in the back, but if you wanted to have all the stuff included, you should use the wrappers.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Story.
Let's try that again then. But let's also have a look at the makefile. What I did. So we have the template makefile now here that we renamed to reflect our architecture, which is in this case just now the version name. We have that here. And inside of this, we just have the library prefix, so the path to the lib folder in the build libraries and the include folder in this library's output.
Sorry for interrupting you again, but I copied the makefile, the template you put, but it does not look like the same because. And then I copied and then I rename it inside this and put inside this make folder. But it does not look like the same file. It does not start with comp. It starts with CMP CC. It's
yes. This is the top of my makefile now on screen.
Okay. So you are not starting from the very beginning. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I probably was a bit fast.
Okay.
Here.
So that looks like what I have here. Okay.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of things that we define first, and we also notable is that we include our build environment here, like module environment in these makefiles.
Okay,
otherwise
let me find which line is that modulus loaded.
It's about 50, 60 is the
60. Okay.
Well, the libraries. The module loads is like at the very top, but this is just as comments.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
So what should I modify here? Because
there's the library prefix and library prefix headers.
So
here,
okay.
Yes, you want to here add the path to the libraries that we just built.
Okay, let me just here as if you could copy and paste that in the chat, could make everything easy.
This is now in my own
It's in
folder.
Okay, yes, sorry, yes,
Yeah,
it's in terminal, same problem I have in hand. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, if you if you got your libraries built, then
okay.
use that folder.
Okay. Okay, I'll use my libraries folder. Okay.
So then I will try the build libraries again. Now this is also interesting, since I did just, like, while preparing for this, you just use this build library script and it worked. So I'll do it again with this slight modification then. Well, there's some warnings. One in on int. That's probably fine. Yes, this is a nice stress test for our build procedures. So anyone managed to build? Question or successful? You did? Great. Success. We have make in the Vlasiator root directory, because that top level makefile then includes the architecture specific makefile. For this you need this export Vlasiator arch command that gives you the extension after the makefile. Do I have here? I have here another terminal, so I can let's go Vlasiator, and so here you can see that you have the top level makefile, and then in the make folder you have these architecture specific makefiles, and let's do env arch. Well, this one has now the something that comes from my .bashrc. But if I were now doing a make call here in the Vlasiator root, that would actually try to build this with LUMI GNU makefile configuration, which actually should be fine, because those libraries which are in this makefile are centrally managed in our other production project libraries. So it should actually work if I were to build it here, but it would not use the libraries that I just built myself. So I want to do arch equals LUMI 22.08 for this PEPSC demo. Architecture, let's see, libraries have been built. So this should now again work. Oh, I should do make clean to be sure. do warnings. That's fine. We know that's also unfinished documentation. Looks good so far. Let's see if we still encounter a linker error. No. Still. This is very interesting. A very nice demo effect. Pro. What has changed?
I'll put CC instead of MPI C++ there.
Yeah.
If that's the script you've used. You edited the left-hand side and not the right-hand side of the...
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course I did. Derp.
There's still an MPI C++ compiling the VLSV there though, but that didn't seem to cause the issue.
But that's what's called by the wrapper possibly, no? Or maybe the VLSV should take a similar modification somewhere, I think. But that's not the same as the FeedProf one. You might get the same error with the VLSV linking in a minute.
Maybe.
So as you participants may see, we have not ourselves used this script very much because when we got access to LUMI, we just built the libraries by hand. We only took the script into use basically last week, and it's been very successfully running on our automatic testing environment, but it's good to also get it to work properly on LUMI.
Yes. Also successfully run by me to build all of the example runs and run them. So I'm a bit baffled. I'm just cleaning my Vlasiator there. So when the libraries are done, I can just fire that off. Fancy editor. I don't. No, that's in the instructor. Fine. Yes, whether is CC, and that's coming from the LUMI wrappers there. Is that done? That's very done. One more try. Oh no, what is this? Ah, I guess that's not because I don't have. There. LUMI GNU. So yeah, not pointing to the correct. Because I picked up a new terminal, so it doesn't have the correct arch there. This one has. Let's do my clean just to be sure. And then we compile again. So right, so the Vlasiator arch is what comes after the dot in the makefile. Yeah. Yeah. Do you do it with an underscore or a dash? Because it's underscore. Yes, the dash will actually complain. It's not valid form. So it. But in the Vlasiator arch, this variable name, is that a dash or an underscore? It should work. Okay. That's good. But that's there. Do you have spaces there in next to the? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah. Well, it anyways prints all the environment variables. So yeah. No. Prof error. This is very interesting. So can my online colleagues repeat this? I'm also confused that if you followed my instructions and you actually managed to build and it doesn't work now here. So what did I mess up? No. Build libraries.
I'm gonna have a try at this as well now. Let me see.
No. Let me do a git diff to the instructor codes folder that I have. You. You know, that's built on MPI C++. Huh. Huh. This is now a mystery. Oh, but I did take it out of the Vlasiator folder. Did I do modifications there? Nope. It's the same difference. Oh. Oh, this is new ground. Yep. Yeah, again, yeah, sorry. That is slightly annoying. What do I have here? Well, here is one thing. I have forgotten to load the correct module environment, it would seem. No, that looks good, but that looks wrong.
I'm currently following the instructions while deliberately not loading them just to see if that reproduces your error.
Good. Yeah, because I also have like possibly now rebuilt my libraries without this environment while fiddling around. I didn't swap anything. But at least still it was swapping anything. Just like tools is still set. I don't think that is. Spiral build libraries again. Okay, those warnings again. But yes, it's worth remembering your build environment can vary. If you switch terminals, it might not be the same.
One option is to, of course, put the load module commands into your bash RC so that they automatically get executed whenever you log in or open a new shell.
That is true.
And that works, but it is getting kind of annoying because it usually takes a couple of seconds and then you are opening a new terminal and first have to wait. That's why I disabled it for me.
Indeed. And then if you have some tools that actually assume some module environment, like the visit client server, it might confound things as well to have modules loaded in your .bashrc. That particular thing we actually managed to do some wrapping around and make it a bit better. Do we have any other successful builds so far? 1, 2, great. No.
Marco, if you have a few seconds.
Yes.
Okay, so Dimitri in the chat had issues with not having received the submodules. But now he says that he had the SSH issue.
SSH issue, okay.
Yeah, so okay, so there was a fresh message. So it's not a matter of running the git recurse submodules or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Well, can you type the commands again there? Libraries are built here. Let's see if it now compiles for me. No rule. Ugh. So that is another thing that is probably due to not having the Vlasiator environment. No, that is there. Make clean. Make clean, not clear. Once more. So what sort of errors are in the build in this corner? SSH, okay. No, still. All right. So what's the time? When's the lunch? All right. Yeah. 12:30 was, I guess, the lunch break time. So yeah, I guess this is a good time to have a lunch, and we'll reconvene after with hopefully functional programs and processes. And we can also have a look at the SSH keys. Let's return at 1:30. Yeah. So since I have this one build in this instructor codes, or I had one, but I actually cleared that one. So that's not great. I can do then. See if the plan B even works. It's exciting. We've broken the other libraries. Wait, did I clear those? I think. Okay, yeah, that compiles. Yeah, great. The previous makefile that I had for this thing does work. So you can go here into this folder. Right. That's annoying. This folder here, so instructor codes /Vlasiator, and there is the Vlasiator executable there. And you should be able to run it as such. And you can get like the help output there as well. So that works. So to prepare for the next phase of this workshop, if you have your own binary, that's fine. You can take that and put it under your or make a new file folder for yourself under Scratch. So that would be then this sort of a folder, so Scratch and the same project name, and then let's say I have here something. Well, I have nothing here, but that's fine. The example runs and so on are there, but create yourselves like a workspace here on the Scratch and bring the Vlasiator executable there. And with that, I will leave a minute. Well, I'll do show some slides first, and then we go to the hands-on portion. So what we know with from running Vlasiator that it tends to scale well. I mean, it's parallelized very thoroughly, but of course it also helps that the data sizes are quite large, so large task sizes usually even scale well. And sometimes we have even observed superlinear scaling, so super ideal things going on, but that's cache access patterns or something that improves when we try to scale forward or upward, like at smaller run sizes. But yes, these production runs are big, as we have seen or heard, and balancing the load is not trivial. So we want to benchmark our runs when we start running them. We don't want to burn millions of CPU hours if we can avoid it with just suboptimal configurations. And this is like this afternoon's exercise that we will run some benchmarking tests. You get to run a couple of different versions. You can decide for yourself or take up from a given spreadsheet what to do. But let's look at that later. But let's first talk about a bit on what we can adjust when we try to scale it. So, well, of course, one is that you just add more nodes or CPUs, but then that can hit scaling limits or budget limits or so on. But then one parameter that you can then adjust is the number of MPI tasks versus the number of cores used per task, because we do threading. So one process can have multiple threads operating it, so it can do operations in the same memory space from that process. And that in principle at least helps with all sorts of things. If you have lots of threading, then you can have larger domain decompositions, or the domains can be larger, so you have less of a surface to communicate between MPI tasks that don't share memory. But traditionally, Vlasiator scaling over threads has not been very great, and we tend to go with having more tasks with fewer threads. And with this current production run, it's actually been driven by this memory issues. So when we have more threads, cores per task, then we have bigger domains, which helps to reduce the size of the communication buffers between the domains, so that lowers the memory footprint a bit. And other things that you can adjust is the selection of the load balancing algorithm. We saw some images of their outputs. What we have found currently, this rectilinear block load balancing has been pretty good, and then this recursive inertial bisection, which is written out in the materials at least. These have been found to perform well. Might depend on the use case. Then something to adjust is how often you rebalance this. So how often do you shuffle the computational elements between different tasks, because the load changes. And then, of course, using AMR and maybe having some restrictions on where do you want to refine might be useful. So if you have something happening on the flanks that you are not interested in, then you might not want to actually refine it. But that's pretty automatic actually at this point. See, well, yeah, this is what I touched already upon. So memory use per task has been this driver for this current selection. If we have some reference job scripts from that, then that might be why there are so many threads being used, and we'll examine that soon. And that was also related to communications buffer, that if we have, like at the other end, if we have many tasks and just few cells per task, then the communication buffers will be large. So if we have a small run, then it probably doesn't make sense to have very many MPI tasks running that run. It won't scale very well. There's some random words of wisdom that was just noted, that what we kind of have been aiming at is something that is about 40 gigabytes of memory use per node, and below that is probably going to have small domains for like really good efficiency for these LUMI nodes. And yeah, production is then quite beefy indeed. But then I'll have quite a bit of examples that we are just looking at mostly of configs. So this is how we kind of set. This is a Slurm patch job script. Is this, by the way, familiar to people? Perhaps. This is an example from the production run. 500 nodes, and we reserve the full nodes. That's actually enforced on the compute partitions standard and larger, or well, large partitions. Small, like the support partitions, are not enforcing that. But here we have selected that we have 8 MPI tasks per node, and then each task has 16 CPUs assigned. And if we want to adjust, try if hyperthreading works, then we can add this hint here on LUMI at least. And one thing to note when we have these large runs is file input output. So the Lustre file system, it actually has a reason why there's a quota on the number of files, because it does not read small files very efficiently. It's really geared towards having large files that can be accessed by MPI and written to and read from in parallel. So if you have the compute nodes here, like a really big bunch of them, they access the storage through network, and then they are stored in different storage compartments. So you can stripe a big file over several endpoints, and they go basically like this. So you have one file, and it gets chunked and placed on different hard drives. And what we have used, this is now more or less for reference here, is that we have some configs that we don't actually want to look at right now in much detail. Let's just get to running, but just know that these are here, and we want to have these stripe counts with larger runs, so that all of the gazillion MPI tasks won't be writing into a single storage server. That would not be very performant. There's some exercises in the materials. I'll let you look at those, how to set and get stripes, and there's also portions for the same settings in the Vlasiator configs. But now let's go to the actual study material here, and let's start running or looking at the configurations. So you have now for yourselves some form of play space on the Scratch, and you have the Vlasiator executable there, and you can now also copy yourselves a configuration file from here. This from the example runs scaling baseline flow through AMR. Just can fetch the path from the material. And this is the first thing that we want to have for the Vlasiator to run is indeed the config file that tells what we want to simulate. Besides that, we can have, for example, this sort of files like sw1.dot. So this is SolarWind input configuration or parameters, which is referred to by the config file. There can be other data files that we use as inputs, like this sort of an NRLMSIS. So that's an ionospheric profile file. Someone saying something in the chat. Cool. Please go ahead and also grab this sw1 file from this same folder for yourselves. So you have it. And the last piece that we want here is the Slurm job script, like this job debug.sh. So this is called debug because this is now sending to the debug partition, which is for very small tests. So we can at least start with that and then go to the small partition afterwards. And if we do exclusive runs, then that's can be set there. But if you have these, let's maybe go through this line by line first. This is just a copy paste of the thing. So we start. Well, there's the header, so use bash to read this. That's just a job name, so you can make that descriptive. This gives the next one, the partition, gives where you want to run it, on which sort of a partition, and partitions being like the different queues that you have on LUMI. So debug is short queue for short test jobs, and standard is then for the huge runs. Here you can define how many nodes do you want to use. Here memory equals 0, you reserve the whole memory of the node. That's kind of good to have just in case. Number of tasks per node. So this tells us how many nodes, how many tasks we place per node. That's 32 tasks then in total in over 2 nodes. CPUs per task is set to 8. So this is now 128 CPUs in total on one node and 256 CPUs in total in this job, allocated for this job. Time, 30 minutes should be enough. I don't think you can actually reserve any more on the debug partition, so probably you should not even reserve that much if you don't need to. This account setting, this is important. You don't have access to any other projects, and this is what tells Slurm to bill your compute hours to the project. That's the hyperthreading. We don't need to worry about that unless you absolutely want to. Exclusive, well, that's also handled almost like by that. But this makes it so that you reserve the whole node instead of just a small chunk, even if you had just few CPUs reserved for it. I'm not actually quite sure how LUMI policies with memory go if you have exclusive on the smaller, because the guideline is that you have 2 gigabytes per core per allocation. But if you have exclusive flag on, does it then give you the whole memory space of the node?
Well, you should always request the amount of memory that you need, either with the 0 or putting the actual value in.
Yeah, yes. Yes, we have run into issues with that not happening properly. Well, then there's other things. Dependency, if we want to chain jobs, this might be useful in like while performing longer runs. Then it's just basically bash scripting, and outputs of this script go to a slurm.out file. And here we want to actually have like some outputs here that, okay, this was launched at this date. And then we have some boilerplate here. So we want to actually export the number of threads from Slurm. So this is LUMI things that we should actually export this. So just keep these in here. ulimit-c here is then for core dumps. So if the code crashes, then we can try and figure out what went wrong. Here, detailed FIPROF prints. So this controls how much information you get out of this FIPROF profiler. We can keep it like that. I'm not sure what this UMask actually does. Can someone online note what it is?
That is the default user access mask. Setting it to 007 means that any files that you create will automatically have read and write access to both you and your group.
So that's that one.
Yeah, so that's very helpful in a team environment where one person writes a config file and then someone else finds an error in it and they can just go and edit it directly.
Then the next bunch of modules here, these are now the same modules that we used to build over executable. And these indeed should be the same, because if we then try to run the binary in a different environment, then it will not find the libraries it's looking for. And here we actually print out what we are using, just in case we mess something up, then we can check later. And just making sure that we are in the directory where we submitted the job. And yeah, then some other boilerplate. So we had these sleep commands in for checking some node interconnect issues. But then we can also have a print out to run the version output from Vlasiator, which is good for reproducibility. So it will print out your Vlasiator commit hash and so on. So you can follow what you have been doing with the code. Also the git diff of the code if you have uncommitted changes. Another sleep, and then there is another run command that actually now then launches the job with this config. So this is the syntax that you use, run config, and then the config file. And then you run this with sbatch and the name of this script file. And then it goes into the queue, and then sometime later you will have outputs. Next, let's have a look at the configuration file that is there. This is the flow-through AMR config. And this is such that it has a tube with plasma flowing through it initially, and then we start to push in faster plasma from one end of the tube. And let's go through this as well. So top level options, we describe what particle populations we have. So we want to have here one ion population. Project tag. So this gives us the project that we are, whose properties we are using. So there are several of these, and we'll have some listing of these visible at some point. For now, we'll use the flow through, and that does what it says it does. So it's this test where plasma flows through a box. It's not very exciting, but it is useful. Then we have some top-level flags on if we want to use the field solver, propagate the field, and propagate Vlasov acceleration and translation, especially if we want to debug something or test one portion of the solver. That is good. Dynamic time step we usually want to have on, so the global time step will adapt so that the most restrictive part of the simulation will be resolved in time, so it's no breaks in CFL and so on. There's lots of activity in the chat, or yeah, there's Jan is handling that. Good. Then we will have these subcategories here under this header, so proton properties. So this will give give the properties for this particular species that we here name as proton. So we want to have this population name repeated in these certain headers here. And here we just give it okay, it has mass of 1, and that's in units of proton mass, and it has one charge, and that's in elementary charges. I don't think I actually mentioned this, but we run Vlasiator in unscaled units. So, and in an unscaled terrestrial dipole. So it's basically what you see is what you get. So you don't have to worry about converting the simulation output units from ion skin depths to SI units if you need to do those conversions. And it's pretty handy like this in terms of actually looking at the Earth's magnetosphere and measurements done in there. Next flag, adaptive mesh refinement. There's a quick reference card with a bit more explanations in the training materials. But here we now tell this system that we want to have at maximum 2 levels of refinement during the whole runtime of the simulation. And here, max allowed spatial level is how many refinement levels we actually allow at this moment, because we might want to actually ramp that up during the run. Why is my phone doing that? Okay, adapt refinement is on, so we actually will adapt according to the tuning parameters that we can set here. There is somewhere is a write-up of these. I'm not sure if it's in the training materials, but we can leave these as such. You can play with them if you want at some point. And then there's some specifics on the cadence of the mesh refinements. We don't want to re-refine the mesh each time step, because then we have to do load balancing, because the number of cells in different processes would change, and that's a bit of a more expensive process than running time steps. So we want to do this at some intervals, which are sparse enough that it doesn't break the scaling of the code.
As a note to that, the cadence is given in units of load balance.
Yes.
Yeah. So even if you set it to 1, then it will be happening all the time, but just at every load balance.
And the load balances are given then later in this particular config file in units of time steps done. So that's a bit of a pipeline. And here we also want the first adaptive refinement to happen a bit into the simulation, because we are inputting this ramp of plasma, and we want that ramp to have cleared the front wall, so it starts refining once this interface is inside the box. And we want to have this sort of safety here as well, that we don't want to refine too close to outer boundary cells if they are not periodic.
Your radius is bigger than your box, Marco.
Yeah, well,
this radius has no effect.
Yes, well, I mean, if it weren't there, it wouldn't run. But
oh,
yeah.
Did we budge the default value? But you have a 79 here, which is way bigger than your box.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means we have a bug with the default value of that.
But yeah, we can leave that as is. Then here under grid builder, we define the actual spatial grid, and we give it a number of cells on this sort of a base resolution in X, Y, and Z. So X is now being the kind of the tube direction. Y and Z are the transverse directions to the flow here. And here we give them the spatial extents. minimum, maximum for each coordinate. This gives us the simulation box. And there's a maximum time, 400 seconds. That's enough for the interface to propagate into the about the middle of the box. And there's a time step, which is then overridden by the dynamic time step. Then we have the definition for the velocity space grid for the ion population, so protons. And we have here plus minus 2000 kilometers per second, give or take. And then the number of blocks in each dimension. So the number of cells in each dimension is going to be 4 times this number. And this is just, yeah, we have the blocks as the kind of the unit of the data structure in the simulation. So we are using those here. So that is something to keep in mind, that the velocity space resolution will be actually a bit larger than what is given here. Then we have some input-output. We'll have some more on the variables and input-output tomorrow morning. But here we have diagnostic write intervals, right, and the intervals of how often do we want to store reduced data from the simulation. Here we would also set up restart intervals and so on. So saving the whole state of the simulation so you can pick up the simulation later, or in case if there's some node failure or interconnect failure and the code crashes, or it crashes because you made some mistake somewhere, then you can also look at the restarts then. And we can also save these velocity distribution functions onto this reduced data files. We'll talk more about those, but we generally don't want to store the whole data set for each time step, because that would save all the VDF data for each cadence, and that would be very, let's say, space intensive on the system. Say the restart files for the large runs are 5-point-something terabytes. So we don't want to have that for each second or 100th of a second. And here we define what sort of reduced data we want to output each interval given here. Here's some basic ones: field solver, electric field, magnetic field. We'll look at this more later. And some population variables like density, velocity, pressure tensor, and so on. Then we get to the interesting part, so boundary conditions. Here we have periodic boundaries in y and z directions, so these lateral directions. So we have kind of this infinite tube that we are running plasma, or infinite plane that is being simulated. Except for the x direction, which has one outflow boundary and one Maxwellian boundary. So Maxwellian being an inflow boundary where we define a Maxwellian distribution that is then, well, should be flowing in. I don't know what happens if it's defined to be flowing out of the box. That probably would be quite interesting. But then for each of these boundary conditions, we give some precedence, and then we define which phases do these actually are used for. So plus X phase is now the proton outflow phase, and Maxwellian is the minus X phase. So the proton should be flowing towards plus X direction. And then for the Maxwellian proton distribution, we have here the file for this phase, and we give there that it's the sw1.dot. And this has just the parameters for the Maxwellian and well, the solar wind magnetic field as well that is being inputted there. For the proton population or the ion population, here we actually give it then the sparsity threshold. So this is the cutoff below which the VDF is set to 0 or not considered. The background magnetic field is given here in this in the specific settings for this particular project that handles setting these values, as well as the initial condition for the protons. And then there's the load balance settings. Here are basically the options that we want to use either RIB or RCB with this pair of values. And here we are doing this each 5 time steps, which might be a bit often, but then again, we have this interesting part of the system which is moving through the box the whole time. So we actually want to have a bit higher cadence with that one. And then we can choose to save restarts if we encounter something that looks suspiciously like the run is going to fail soon. So like memory limit that, okay, there might be coming a time soon-ish that we are running out of memory. Maybe because interesting plasma processes, maybe because there's some bug somewhere, or it's otherwise just exploding. But one is also this velocity space wall block margin, so we can try and see if the velocity distribution is going to hit the wall of the velocity space that we have defined here. And that might happen because of valid reasons, but it also might be just some sort of unstable situation somewhere, usually at the inner boundary. So I think at this point we can actually now try and run the code. Question? Do you have it up? Oh, you have one of those. These are in the are here, this particular one. So please grab that one. Right. So yes, there is in the reference section in this material, there's the Vlasiator config reference. And you can get this by running Vlasiator --help. This is formatted a bit more nicely here. And there is plenty, including for all the different projects. So you might want to do some grepping to see what you want. There is plenty. But this is a good thing to check and double check if if there's something that feels amiss or you are not certain on what is going on. Of course, it's also one option is to just go to the code and stare at it for a while as a parameters file that has that data, but it's nice to get it from the help prompt. And then I guess we can talk about performance monitoring maybe a bit later. Let's try and launch some runs and then get back to this performance monitoring once we have something to read. So now you have grabbed probably some executable, hopefully, and this config file and the SW1 file. So let's go to the Scratch folder, and I'll go to mine. and I'll do one test here. Feel free to name them as you like. And I will be copying stuff from my own example runs here. So it's in this baseline directory. I want the SolarWind file, I want the flow-through file, and I want something else, the job script. Well, that's gonna probably copy also some Slurm files here, but I don't let that bother me. I'll get rid of the Slurm files. Oh, I should have also gone into the actual folder. So let's move these guys there. Here is actually the exercise. So the basic run setup that we want to try is going to be indeed this tube test. I can show you how it looks like as well. I should probably do it right now. So I'll launch up my visit, and tomorrow we'll look at how this thing works. If you have installed visit, then that's good. There are instructions how you should be able to get this work on LUMI and our project pretty handily. I hope that is smoother than compiling Vlasiator at least. Usually it's the other way around. This has been a kind of a pain to configure or at least build, but that also seems to have been getting better. There's something that we have noticed lately is that loading modules is pretty slow on LUMI. So this actually is was just loading those modules, and now it's launching my visit sessions there.
I could make a small note of interest here. Unlike many other supercomputers where you can just do a module purge and then reload whatever modules you want, on LUMI, the suggested approach is rather that you always relog in and then load the modules you want. So don't put any module load commands into your login scripts, but rather do it all manually. Otherwise, I have been able to get my module system into a completely broken state by trying to reload and purge and load other modules instead. And then the only way around it was just to log out and log back in.
Yes. And we actually have our own small modification to the visit wrapper, so it knows how to load the modules it actually needs. So that's handled by the visit install here. So you don't have to worry about the modules here. And it is again loading some modules for the compute server of the visit session. So just a second. In the meantime, while that is loading, you can find from the HackMD page, there should be a link. Is it this one? This is the planning document. I don't want that one. Stage 0. This one, is it the same? Stage 0, yes. Here you can actually find, well, in the day 1, you can already go and find this scaling exercise spreadsheet. So the idea is for you to pick up some couple of lines from here, add more lines if you want to try something else. Note your name or initials here that you have taken this slot, and then modify the config and job scripts accordingly to the given things here, and run your runs and note that the wall time that it took from the end of the log file afterwards, like how long did it take to run the simulation. I have a couple of examples here, and there's like some preset configurations here. Please fill in these accordingly from these. So the weak scaling is supposed to be so that you keep constant amount of data on one process. So you scale the product of these, the area in the transfer directions, the same as the number of nodes there. So that's a quick intro of that. So that's the end goal here. Now where is my GUI? One thing about Visit is that it produces a ton of windows that can be a bit annoying from time to time. Let's see how it looks like. So this is kind of the baseline run that we have here. Initial plasma, this is now plasma density in this tube. There's a more tenuous plasma here, blue, and then twice as heavy plasma coming in from, or dense plasma coming in from one wall. And then as it comes in, it will just push on the existing plasma. It's also a bit faster. And it will start to form this sort of a front. And notably, this is an AMR test. So here we can see the spatial grid and how that has evolved. So this is kind of the base grid size. Here is one refinement, and here is the second level of refinement. So it's quite dense here, just at the boundary between these different plasmas. And what we are going to do is, if we increase the node count by factor of 2, then for the weak scaling, we want to increase the area here. And you can do it like as a square, so that could be good. Anyway, that's now the visit shown and the spreadsheet shown. Let's go back to the things here and here. So now, once you have these in your test folder, like make a folder for this particular run that you are doing. Let's check. Let's check the job script. I'm missing the Vlasiator executable there, so I'm just gonna grab that from the examples. Sample run scaling and baseline and Vlasiator. Yeah, the binaries, they are everywhere. That's good. Functional binaries even. Hopefully, if anything has changed. Well, let's have a look at the config file that we have. So this is now the baseline config. And if let's say we want to do a simulation which has 2 nodes, like the one that I have already done there. 2 nodes. Oh, that's fast. And we here I want to keep the same configuration with the tasks per node and codes per task. And this is scaling this, so we want to be exclusive about the node, so there's no one is bothering us. These things you can play around with. So this is the processor bindings on the nodes that might affect some performance. You can play around with that, but otherwise this is now good. And then we can also check that we are just indeed doing the srun on Vlasiator and using this correct configuration file. That is good. And I'll note also that how do you run, what command do you use, and if it has any parameters, that also depends on the environment you are in. CSC has this srun on LUMI that gets its parameters from Slurm environment variables, so you don't have to worry about that. Some environments you need to actually specify how many nodes you are running this on and how many tasks you are running this on, again for some mpi run command there. But this is handy. Let's do the right. So now if I increase the node size and I want to do this weak scaling thing, I want to actually go to the flow through test and go to the grid builder. I could actually say these, use the correct terms here. So I wanted here to be y length is doubled here. And that's also could be an interesting thing to see what happens if it's just extended in one direction or in two directions, because the two directions would be more true to reality, more handy measure. So with 4 nodes, you would have 24 and 24 maybe, if you do this weak scaling test. I can put in some variations there. So I'll write that in, and then I do sbatch and job debug. Submitted. Let's see. SQE and your username. What do I have in queue? There it is. Pepsi demo. It is running. It has been running a few seconds. 2 nodes. Here are the nodes that are running it. It's on the debug partition. But we probably should use the small partition, and there's also a limit that you can't have. I think it was 2 nodes for a debug partition max. So if you use more nodes, then use another partition, and that just happens by modifying this partition tag here. And that would be then small, for example. That's one of these support partitions. Standard is the big one. I don't think we need to go there. Well, 16 might go there, but then as it's running, we can check what sort of stuff is here. There's a log file, there's a Slurm output. Let's check the Slurm output. Okay, there's modules, and there's the version information and the compilation information as well for Vlasiator. Git branch, git log. Yes, that is nice. Module list. And there's git status, diff, mpich error. Your spatial cells seem not to be cubic. Yes, of course, something that I forgot. So it has died already. So what happened here was that I increased the number of cells in y direction, but I did not increase the spatial extents of the y direction. So I want to double these as well. Otherwise, the grid cells would have been like squished. So that's like a weird aspect ratio, and we don't really want to do that. I don't think there should be any. Yeah. Oh, we have 100K now, and that was eaten away pretty soon. I don't know, 300K. Will they? Yeah, let's see. Let's see, just to have some margin. I mean, I don't think we should be spamming that anymore if we are just using our home folders, but it's good to have a bit more breathing room there. Yeah, and it's going to be temporary. Okay, so yeah, let's try with those different spatial extents. And sbatch job debug again, submitted. And let's see, I have a alias for doing this SQ user alho mark, so I don't have to type everything in at the same time. And well, it's the queue is full, so I can actually remove my visit session from there. I don't want to plot right now, so that could free up some resources. And you can also use the small partition anyway. I guess the debug partition might be flooded with our runs if we just use that one. But yes, now is well, time for you to try if it works. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. And problems or notes on anything, that is entirely fine.